have much to add with the exception that this did present an opportunity for me to share some additional new information, and you inspired me as well. And you inspired me. And you inspired me. You inspired me.
I knew it.
Bog Panda.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bog Panda. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
And I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. And make sure you guys like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications, check out our merch store. Jesus would want you to.
I am not going to speak for the Lord. So we'll leave that to you.
I speak with the Lord. We're homies.
Yeah, so it appears. So anyway, quick one tonight, but we wanted to just, there have been the ways that I have enriched Mike's life and made him a better person are too numerous to cover in a single show or in a series of shows even. But one of my most profound impacts on Dr. Belinsky's life is the pushing him into the wonderful world of Amiga, having him kind of check some of that action out and through the Super Console X and also Amiga Forever. Did a little bit of that, kind of nudged him into that space. And he's had a chance to start to experience all that is the wonder of Amiga. And so we just wanted to just do a quick little show as he's kind of started that journey through there. I was interested in checking back in and seeing kind of as he's done that, what couple games have bubbled up for him. And so far, and then I'll throw a couple of my favorites out as well. But we just wanted to kind of do a quick little show talking about kind of Mike's initial perception of some of his favorite Amiga games, and I'll share some of mine that may take him to some other places to go look. So, Mike, as a fairly newly minted Amiga guy, what have been kind of your favorites so far?
So it's been interesting because I really started to delve into it. You've talked about Amiga a lot. I didn't have a lot of experience with it. My Commodore experience was mostly the Commodore 64, as we've talked about on here. So it was kind of interesting to delve into it. And then, of course, getting the Super Console X finally, getting one that was working. And that has a good selection of Amiga games on there. So it's been kind of fun to start delving into that. And then, of course, you introduced me to Amiga Forever. I would say the first game that I really got hooked on was a game called Gloom. And it is a shameless clone of Doom. So Doom, when it came out, I remember a lot of people, even with the shareware version, a lot of people it didn't run great on everybody's computer. Even with the shareware one, some of those frame rates were pretty low playing at some friends' houses and things like that. So something that, from what I've been reading when I was looking up on Gloom, Doom at the time just couldn't be ported over to Amiga without scaling it down in a lot of ways. Doom now has been ported to everything, including rotary phones, so I'm sure it could be ported to Amiga. But at the time, I guess they couldn't figure it out. So clones of that started popping up on there, similar to when Wolfenstein came out and there was a million first-person shooters that looked like that. Gloom, as you can tell from the name, is just a shameless ripoff. And it looks awful. That's the downside of it. The graphics are very, very pixelated. So it does give you the option to control the window size. But if you go full screen, it's just a garbled mess. So you have to kind of have a border around it in order to make it a playable game. That being said, and you can also turn off the textures on the floor and ceiling as well to help it run smoother. If you get the window size down a little bit, though, that's not necessary, at least not on a Super Console X, which could be overclocking it. So I don't know about original hardware. The game is super fun, though, because it doesn't pretend to be anything other than a Doom clone. And because of the things that they've kind of simplified with it, there's no real like puzzles or any sort of like solving anything mechanics to it. You're just killing everything that's in your way, getting from one corridor to the end of the other corridor kind of thing. And there's something that's really fun about that, doing that. And one of the things that's interesting, you can pick two kind of violence level modes in there. One of which the characters just explode into pieces everywhere, and their limbs and organs and things stay. They don't disappear. So you're just trampling over piles of dead bodies, things like that, as you're mowing down your enemies. So super fun game. There is a sequel to it, apparently. I have not played that. And there was a remastered version of the original a couple years later that apparently cleans up those graphical issues. So I'm definitely looking for a totally legal ROM of that if anybody's watching and has that they can send to me. That's the same game as the one that I've been playing, just you can play it full screen and it doesn't look like somebody punched you in the face while you're drunk and then rubbed glass shards in your eyes.
Gotcha. Yep. So we'll kind of go back and forth. You can throw one out, I'll throw one out, and do a couple that way. The first one, and this was where I got on my kind of kick, telling a couple key folks that, hey, you need to go get Amiga Forever, because they were running. I had bought Amiga Forever. We're going to do a show on it. I keep talking about it. We'll do a show on it. We'll do a little bit deeper dive on it, but it's awesome. If you're an Amiga fan, get it. Full-blown emulation of the Amiga on a Windows machine. You can pick whether it's Amiga 500, 2000, 3000. You can really kind of set it up with different chipsets and all that type of deal. So it is just a really strong emulation environment. It comes with a number of licensed games that have become available, and kind of with Amiga's history, there's also a pretty good trove of things that have just kind of fallen into public domain that are good to get. But one of my all-time favorites was a sports game called Gridiron. It's a football game. And unlike Madden or anything like that, it is football at its most basic. You have the players are individual circles, colored circles. There's orange and black dots on the screen representing all the players, but it comes with a full offensive playbook, a full defensive playbook, and you basically control your players using the mouse. So it's not like a joystick kind of a control gamepad kind of thing. So it's not a lot of dexterity there, but you kind of pull back, and then you move your mouse over to the receiver you want to try and hit if you're doing a pass, and hitting the button from a timing perspective. Kickoffs, you just kind of drag your mouse around and your guy moves across there. But the really cool thing was you could program your own plays. So you get a playbook, but then you can go in and edit that playbook and create your own playbook and come up with all kinds of crazy formations and things to do, and just kind of see how a standard defense would work against some of these very, very strange things. But very easy playability, still requires a little bit of skill and dexterity to make sure you're executing a pass right, that there's not somebody in between you and your receiver who'll get intercepted. But a really kind of creative way. So I've always found it to be a really enjoyable, probably it is my favorite football simulator in terms of a thing to play, because the play itself is not difficult to figure out and master from there. But then you got a lot of creativity if you want to go in and make your own plays and do all that kind of stuff. But it's just, even out of the box, using the existing playbook. Offensive play number 10, my all-time favorite, by the way. You can have a lot of fun with it. So Gridiron by Bethesda Software, as a matter of fact. So I was a little surprised by that. But it's a really good game as well.
Yeah, I would probably be terrible at that game. I'm not a sports guy, and I understand the basics of football. Like, I could watch a game and understand what's happening, but not enough to be able to kind of set plays or anything like that.
It's pretty fun. You ought to take a look, though. You might be surprised.
I'm definitely willing to give it a shot. I'm not a sports guy at all, but I love the game NBA Jam, so I'm not opposed to game versions. And Dick Vitale Baseball for DOS, that was a good one.
Unfortunately, I missed that one. Not unfortunately.
Yeah. Another one that I would say. So I was on there and I was kind of looking. One of the things that I wanted to check out for the Amiga was fighting games. I'm a huge fighting game guy. And a lot of early fighting game ports, whether it was to computers or gaming systems, really aren't that good. They were really struggling trying to get the arcade conversions down for the home systems, especially with some of the 8-bit systems. 16-bit handled it a lot better, but even, going to Mortal Kombat, which we had just done a Mortal Kombat episode, and I played all 4 of the Mortal Monday games, which is when they initially ported the first Mortal Kombat to home systems. They released 4 versions of it on the same day: Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear. Everybody kind of dunks on the Game Boy and Game Gear ones, and they're terrible. But at the time, and even kind of now, it was just amazing they existed. Like Game Boy at that point was Tetris. So yes, Mortal Kombat on Game Boy doesn't look good and controls worse, but Tetris was the pinnacle of visuals and gameplay on the Game Boy at that point. So the fact that that was recognizably Mortal Kombat characters fighting each other on your Game Boy was mind-blowing. And at the time, we thought it was amazing because, it just existed. Super Nintendo and Genesis are really what it came down to, though, if you were more serious about the gameplay. And I got to be honest with you, Super Nintendo on the surface looks prettier, but it just doesn't play that great. And ultimately, it fell far behind Genesis, in part because of that. Also because Genesis, with a code, you could get the blood from the arcade game, which you saw me put in on the video that we did. But there's also, Super Nintendo had a better color palette. So on the surface, it looks a little better, but Super Nintendo has a weird aspect ratio. If nobody's ever noticed this before, especially if you look at a Genesis game next to a Super Nintendo game, Super Nintendo games are kind of stretched because of the internal aspect ratio of the processor. So if you look at especially Mortal Kombat, it's very noticeable. The characters are shorter and wider, and there's also just dead space at the bottom of the screen. That's not from the emulation when you see me playing that. That's how it looked on the cartridge as well. It's the aspect ratio of Super Nintendo. Genesis, which came a few years before Super Nintendo, which gives Nintendo an advantage because they could see what shortcomings Sega had there and make up for that. Particularly, they had better sound and more colors. So you tended to get prettier looking and sounding games. For whatever reason, though, even though they came later, they didn't have as strong a processor as Genesis had, which Genesis dubbed their blast processing that they became famous for, which allowed them to do really fast running games like Sonic the Hedgehog, which now it just looks like a normal platforming game. At the time, though, Sonic the Hedgehog was amazing because nothing that fast could run on Super Nintendo, even though in other ways it's a more powerful system. Mortal Kombat really, really made good use of that, where it's not comparable gameplay wise. The game slows down, the controls aren't responsive on Super Nintendo. So I really wanted to see what the Amiga Mortal Kombat looked like because I'd kind of played the full gamut of Mortal Kombat games when they came out and still to this day. I really have to say it's one of the better home conversions of it. I was really surprised, especially because I knew it didn't have the processing power of the Sega Genesis because for whatever reason, they have some amazing processor for the time in there. It does seem modeled after the Genesis version, though. I believe it was the same developer for it. And similar to Shaq Fu, which I also played on Amiga for our review of that, it seems like they modeled it after the Genesis and then just removed whatever assets didn't fit into the Amiga sort of space there. What's weird, though, is it has some other things that are put back into it that Genesis version doesn't have, like a couple of background animations and sound effects and things like that. So it's a weird kind of balancing act there. But it's a really good port. I would say better than the Super Nintendo version.
Cool. And I'll throw in my last one for this. We're gonna milk this concept. We'll come back for future shows. But I'll throw my last one in for this show, and that is Silent Service. So, Mike, are you a submarine guy?
Yes, I'm a Silent Service guy, but I played it on Nintendo, the original NES.
I love Silent Service on the Amiga. It was one of my favorite games to play. I never had as much anxiety in a game. Nothing surpassed it. until Bioshock, when you look in a mirror, you're checking something out, and you turn around, and there's you're attacked immediately. And a big jump scare in Bioshock. But the stress that this would introduce, because I just love the premise, the way it played on the Amiga. You're cruising around, you've got basically kind of some sonar going to kind of say, okay, I can tell there's some stuff here. You maybe even get kind of an idea of the number of ships and the types. But then you got to surface to at least get to periscope depth to fire some torpedoes off. And as you surface, there's nothing more frightening than surfacing thinking you're going to just kind of get this freight ship, its side exposed to you for you to just riddle with torpedoes, then to pop up and see that there is a destroyer on a dead bead for you and coming right at you full speed. So then you dive, and then you try and run and hide, and you got the depth charges going, and your sub's taking damage. And so you got to try and figure out, they've got kind of a read on you. And so if I take a hard left and then double back, am I going to throw them off or not? Usually once a destroyer kind of honed in on me a little bit and I was starting to get a little depth charge action, the game wasn't going to be lasting a whole lot longer, but it was so fun to kind of get up there. And, particularly when you surfaced up and the convoy hadn't tuned into you yet, and you start to size it up and you kind of say, okay, I'm going to fire 6 torpedoes here, 2 at this guy, 2 at this guy, 2 at this guy. And until something happens and they get hit, I can kind of observe the fun. But basically, as soon as the action starts happening, if they have ships around them that are there to protect them, they're coming for you, and they're coming for you with great haste. So I just found it to be an amazing game, really fun. It's not high-res graphics, but I mean, for what it is, it's still pretty reasonable. You can pick up the different kinds of ships and all those types of things. And a lot of it's almost more HUD displays anyway of what you're trying to do. So that kind of highly polygoned up image isn't as critical. Really fun play. And like I said, just kind of, you're just trying to come up with the strategy to kind of hit and run and get out of there and stay okay was really fun. So so you played it on what system again?
So I played it on NES. It was a gift that somebody got me, maybe for Christmas or something like that. And I remember trying to play it and just really, because I had no experience with any kind of game like that. I came from more of the action platformer and fighting games and things. I just really had no idea what was going on. And one of my cousins, who's older than me, had come over and she had brought her boyfriend. He got really excited when he saw it. I was like, you want to play? And he's like, yeah, I have this on computer. I don't know if it was Amiga or if there was a DOS version of it or anything as well. But he kind of he explained it to me because he had experience with the game. And it took him a minute because I guess the remapping of it for NES, but he really got into it, really explained it to me. So I have fond memories of that game once I learned how to play it.
Yeah, it's a fun one. So it's cool. So for you folks out there watching, if you're done buying one of our t-shirts, leave us a comment and let us know if you were an Amiga guy or a submarine guy or whoever. But if you were familiar with the Amiga and you had a couple favorites, let us know what yours are. We'll be coming back to this a little more because Mike's going to continue to get more experience. I'm going to continue to exercise all that Amiga Forever can offer me in terms of that. Also Super Console X as well. It's nice to get back into the Amiga world and play some of these games because it's been a while. So it's been pretty fun. But yeah, we'd love to hear kind of if you've got some favorites, agree with ours, or want to offer some other alterations, and we'll have more for you later.
Thanks, everybody.